Hello and welcome to the Boiler House Garage YouTube channel. Today we'll be having a look at my 1977 Vauxhall Cavalier Mk1. I'm having issues with the throttle where I'm lifting my foot off of the pedal and sometimes the throttle is sticking open, like I have involuntary cruise control, even though this car doesn't have cruise control obviously. So let's have a look at the cable. First we'll take a look at the linkage side. A little bit of play in the cable here, but it's not jammed. This linkage doesn't feel quite right, and this bar here does appear to be a little bit wonky and too short for this setup. This lower part of the linkage is what actuates the throttle valve on the carburettor. If we have a look here at the pedal side, where we can straight away see that something's wrong. The spring and the attachment seems to have fallen out the top of the pedal, and there's supposed to be a rubber bush here, I think, to hold this securely, which is probably going to be the primary cause of the issues I'm having. If we take a quick look at the carburettor, this is a twin choke carb, so there's two throttle valves and they're both actuated one after the other, and then this hits at this point here there's a throttle stop which can be adjusted, but it looks fine. We take a look inside. This is what's useful about, say, K&N air filter, because you can just lift the lid off the top and you don't have to remove an entire airbox assembly. Just to add a little more info on these types of twin choke or twin barrel carburettors that have progressive secondary throttles, on the right hand side you can see that this is a Weber 3236 DGV 5A. It's a manual choke variant of the DGAV and DGEV carburettors that have coolant and electronically operated automatic chokes respectively, all of which have their larger secondary barrel open at half throttle to give a good balance of economy and performance. The throttle of the smaller primary opens fully at half throttle, followed by the secondary. In all-out performance setups where economy's not quite so important, both barrels will generally be the same size and open at the same time. So let's pop off this ball joint here. It's just a simple push and pull fit. Something I've noticed here with the adjustments, the cable's been adjusted where there's most slack on the side of the pedal. There's two washers on one side when they're actually supposed to be either side of this bracket. So just remove the nuts all the way onto the cable, and then it should slide out and you can pull the cable out of this little gap in the bracket. Just pop this back on here for safekeeping. Let's take a look at the pedal. It is still attached, but only just. I think with a flick of my thumb you can disconnect the cable easy. There's supposed to be a plastic holder inside the top of the pedal here. That's a similar shape to the bracket on the throttle linkage. If we remove it here, we can see that yeah, there's the plastic thing that's supposed to fit inside the top of the pedal, the retaining spring, and that's how that attaches. So we look at the cable a bit closer here. I need to find some sort of bush to hold this into the bulkhead, and this white thing here is what's supposed to push and click into the top bracket of the pedal. I'm going to need both hands to fit this, so I won't be able to show you on camera, so what I'll do is I'll fit it and then show you it from both ends. So from this side what I've done is I've reseated this plastic piece here, the spring's in front of it with the stop screw at the end. All you do is you fit the cable through that gap first and then push the bush through the circular piece. But now I need to fit a bush on here to secure this. So this isn't the correct part, but this will do as a temporary measure. It's just a silicone sleeve used to reduce a hose. And it fits perfectly on this side. It won't do go inside the bulkhead to act like the OE part should, but what I'll do is I'll just feed it in from the other side and then attach it to the pedal. So what I've done is I've adjusted the pedal stop screw. That slight tapping you can hear is it hitting the bulkhead, not pushing on the silicone bush that I've just put in, because I don't want it forcing it back out. Oh, seem to have a extra wire here coming from my brake pedal switch. And that has seemed to have worked rather well. It's in here nice and securely. Remember, it doesn't have to be quite as big as the clutch cable, which you can just see here on the other side of it. If I get some gloves on, let's fit this other side. I'm also going to refit this as it was previously. It's technically wrong because you're supposed to have a washer either side of this bracket, but obviously I think what's happened is it's a standard throttle cable, but it's had an aftermarket carburettor fitted, so it just needs as much slack on the side of the pedal as possible. In Haynes manual fashion, refitting is the opposite of removal, albeit a lot more fiddly. What I might do here is just clean up a few of these linkages and add a dab of grease to the ball joint area. Here we go, it's all greased up now. And it's nice and easy to refit. You just put it on straight and give it a press with your thumb. Here we go. There's quite a bit of slack on this. You'll probably notice that in the pedaling a little bit. That's reasonably secure, but I'll nip it up a bit later. Now let's see what the pedal movement's like. It's certainly opening both throttle valves properly, but there's a little bit of slack here. I'm not sure if this is the cable or part of the linkage, so we'll have to have a quick look at that. I think this is the issue we're going to have with this shorter bar, so the first thing I need to do is get a longer one to try and take the slack out of the linkage as well as the cable. A member of the Opel Manta Owners Club pointed me to Idle Schmieder, this German website where they do supply brand new rubber grommets for the bulkhead where the throttle cable attaches for the bargain price of roughly a £5 an hour money. On eBay I've just ordered a throttle linkage rod. It's basically a universal fitment. Here it is. Not much to say about it really, and the seller hasn't left me any feedback, so sod them for giving them any good review. Conversely, this Idle Schmieder is a brilliant service. It's arrived in less than a week. They include quite a few things here, a little business card and a sticker with the documents. As you can see inside here, I ordered a few more bits than just the rubber throttle grommets from the Idle Schmieder, because they had some rare parts that you just can't get over here. And here it is. This is the bit we need. It just pushes into the bulkhead and secures the throttle cable. This is a set of 3 gaskets for the camshaft inspection plates which go on the head. This is not something I ordered. This is a free gift they very nicely included. It's banana flavoured herbal tea bag. And here's a little kit where you can replace your engine earth strap and the battery negative cable. It just freshens up your ground on the car, makes it better starting in case you've got corrosion and older stuff. Now Opel use M7 bolts on the water pump and the timing gear cover thing, whatever it's called. They're actually quite hard to find in the specific lengths you need, so I thought I'll order this kit as it was cheap enough. And I'm replacing the water pump shortly. And finally, this is a rocker cover gasket, because as you can see in the video, the rocker cover on my car's rusty as hell, so I'm going to be taking it off to repaint. You may have noticed in that eBay listing earlier that this throttle linkage is 100mm, so I'm probably going to have to shorten it ever so slightly to use as a replacement for this fixed linkage. And also something I forgot to notice earlier with these little retaining clips that go on the bottom of these ball joints. There's ones on this new one, the old fixed one has these two. What I didn't notice was the end of the throttle cable is supposed to have one here, look, through this small hole. So what I'm going to do is use one of the older ones on this linkage here. As I'm going to need both hands to remove these little clips, what I'll do is I'll just take them off here. Once I've removed this throttle linkage, I'll show you how these clips fit and attach while it's on the bench. With a little bit of a twist here, off it comes. Now just to show you how these fit, the longer part of the clip just goes inside this hole here and actually retains the ball joint by holding one side of it, and then you lock it in place by swinging it around the back of the linkage. Removing it, you just use like a small screwdriver or just something to flick it off over the edge. But ideally don't use your fingernail or something like that, use a tool. Now with these two pivot points at rest, it gives me a rough idea of how long I need this new throttle linkage to be, and I'm going to have to cut a few mil off of the threaded bar so I can set it at the ideal distance to take the slack out of this lower actuating part. Cut down a bit of threaded bar, remember to use a file to take off this burr just to round off the edges so that whatever you're bolting to it can bite into the thread. The manufacturer's done the same on this side. Ah, look at her, it's alright for some, isn't it? As before, I've added a little bit of grease to the ball joints. It's just a case, like with the throttle cable, of snapping these over the top of them. When I say a little bit of grease, I'm going to have to wipe off the excess here. I've moved the throttle cable over just a little bit as the slack is now being taken up. I've also added the spring clips that I showed you earlier to the linkages, and I just need to nip up these little retaining nuts. I've now encountered another issue because I've got the longer throttle linkage to take the slack out of this mechanism. The lower part doesn't have any sort of stop when the throttle's at rest. So what's happening now is it's translating it to the upper part, and that part of the mechanism is resting on one of the heater hoses, and that's acting as a stop, which could potentially cause wear and therefore spring a leak a little bit later. So what I'm going to have to do is look for somewhere where I can fabricate a stop or a rest, as it were, for when the throttle's closed. I think my best bet would be to utilise this arm here because it's already acting as a stop for when the throttle's open. At the bottom here there's some sort of redundant bracket with a couple of bolts in there. So if I just remove these two bolts, I should be able to make a template easy enough with a piece of masking tape. You just press onto it, you should be able to get the dirt that's on the bracket itself around the bolt holes to transfer to the piece of masking tape, leaving you with a template so you know where to drill the bolt holes onto the fabricated bracket. And there we have it, a nice simple bracket which I can bolt onto here, and that will stop the throttle assembly hitting the heater hose. I will be doing a test drive just to see how the throttle's behaving now, but I'll save that to the next video, so I look forward to seeing you then, and thanks very much for watching.